Oh yeah, hi. Good morning. Welcome to No Time to Wait 9. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here this morning. Thank you to the people on the live stream who've been on it for hours now. Really eager for us to start. Thank you to the National Library of Ireland for hosting us. This has been truly an honor. I just recall last year when we saw the announcement at Kieran made, Dave Rice and I were super excited just to see our name associated with such a prestigious institution. So we're really, really happy to be here today, and thank you to the entire NLI staff for hosting us and being so incredibly generous, including in your tote bags, which unfortunately live streamers are not getting. But there are wonderful prints in there from the library collection. It's also an incentive to trade. If you don't like yours, maybe you can find somebody else's and you can trade cards. There's also an entrance to the Museum of Literature, to the Molly, which is not too far away, so that's really, really wonderful. So thank you so much to the NLI staff and everybody who's made this possible. So a couple of things. Here are our links. As per usuals, you have our information on our maps to find different places and locations, which I don't think we need anymore because our social dinner was last night. It was an opening social dinner. If you're curious about who's attending the conference, if you need to network, go onto the attendees spreadsheet and make sure you connect to the people you want to connect with. And then, of course, the program is also live on the link. If there's any adjustments, we will make them as we go, and then we'll obviously announce them here. If you're following for the live stream or you just want to see the chat in the live stream, which is also super engaging and wonderful at times, feel free to also connect to the live stream. And for those who are online, you already know the link. So thank you so much. And then the other most important thing, the notes. We have Jennifer volunteered to take notes, but I think if there's other people who are willing to participate in the notes taking, thank you so much. It's always wonderful to have collaborative efforts. I just wanted to say also thanks again to our sponsors that made everything possible yesterday and today and tomorrow. And thank you to all of you and to all the volunteers who've dedicated their time to helping us get us on the road. Okay, and very important, we enforce this. You've been at No Time to Wait. So we have a code of conduct. So code of conduct applies at any time that you're connected to the conference. It's not only in this room. If you're going on a tour and you're being disrespectful or you're not engaging with people the way you should, we will enforce code of conduct. So it's not just in this room, it's across all of No Time to Wait events and spaces. So that reminds me that there's also a tour later today of the National Library of Ireland Reading Room, which is going to be wonderful. And for the very first time, we've scheduled a group photo, which is exciting. So we hopefully won't scramble like most other years in getting that done. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, if you're a speaker, presenter, talk to your stage coordinator. If you have any other questions, come and see us. And I'm going to pass it on to Kieran O'Leary for some housekeeping. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alessandra. Anyone who was here yesterday has heard most of this housekeeping, but we will be kind of filling it out. I'll have to do this every day. So just please be aware of your nearest fire exits. We have one over here. There's one in the main foyer where you would have come in. There are no fire drills scheduled today, so any fire alarm you hear is real. Wi-Fi is available throughout the building through Saranach. We were having issues yesterday. It looks like they are going to continue today. So we would ask, if you do not need Wi-Fi, you have a good data plan, or you're from Ireland, please use it, and we'll leave it for the maybe people who are traveling who don't have the best data. There's an accessible toilet just outside here, outside the theatre, and there's other toilets in the main foyer, downstairs, just past the information desk. There's strictly no food and drink allowed in here. There's a water fountain outside. We are encouraging people to use their own water bottles if you have them. Coffee and lunch will be served in the Richard Hayes room. It's going to be up the stairs. Don't go up to the reading room, please. Unfortunately, we are a working library, and there will be a tour of the reading room later on today. But just it's super beautiful, but it's also, there's a lot of people doing research in there. So the building is undergoing some renovation and space is limited, so we would ask that you follow the instructions of staff. There'll be maybe a little bit of a pinch point in terms of space there, so we might be redirecting some people to different parts of the building, but it'll be nice because there'll be some fresh air and things like that. Another thing is we are going to have more and more people probably drifting in, so if people could scooch in as much as possible, that would be great, so that people who are arriving late can just join at the edges. Personally, I always go to the end of the aisle because it's easier to get out, but sorry. And if you need any assistance at any time, you'll kind of see the Inalai folks around. There's myself, Leona, Maria is here as well. And now I'm going to pass over to our director, Dr. Audrey Whitty. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kieran, and tá bhailte romh go léir hiag leirlinn náisiúnta na hÉireann. That means you're all extremely welcome to the National Library of Ireland. It's a great honour for us to host this conference. And just to give a little bit of background, since 2018, the National Library of Ireland Digital Collections team have organised an annual event to share knowledge and bring together people from all across the GLAM sector, galleries, libraries, archives and museums in Ireland who are facing the digital preservation challenge. And these events take many forms, from lecture series to hands-on workshops. But this year is quite different as the National Library of Ireland hosts the No Time to Wait conference over 3 days, so yesterday, today and tomorrow, which is in a marked contrast to the traditional one-day event. No Time to Wait, as you know, was initially focused on the standardisation of file formats from the EU-funded Preforma project, and it has evolved to cover a range of digital preservation topics with a focus on open media, open standards and digital audiovisual preservation. In recent years, an extra workshop day has been added to the 2 days of the conference and is seen as one of the leading conferences on open media and digital preservation within the field. So it is a great honour that the 9th annual No Time to Wait event is being hosted here with a variety of memory institutions across Europe. And previous places have included the Deutsche Kinemathek in Berlin, the British Film Institute and the Czech National Film Archive in Prague, and most recently ZKM in Karlsruhe in Germany. This has been the highest level of demand for the No Time to Wait in terms of in-person spaces for this particular year, with a strong representation from Ireland, but also attendees from the United States, the UK, Luxembourg, Poland, and many more countries across Europe. The programme is especially strong this year, and there was a full day of hands-on workshops delivered by experts within the field taking place yesterday. And we're delighted to kick off the main conference, obviously, today. We are incredibly proud to be hosting this conference, given the range of expert speakers from around the world. And as we know, the digital collecting and preservation is very much a shared challenge across Ireland and the world, and across all organisations of various different shapes, sizes and remits. The National Library is very, very keen to share knowledge and facilitate events such as this that bring the sector together so that we can all learn from each other. A previous annual National Library of Ireland events, this has been focused just on the island of Ireland. We were now delighted to partner with No Time to Wait to host this event, which is obviously much more international. We especially want to thank the No Time to Wait organising committee, Dave Rice, Alexandra Luciano, Jerome Martinez, Valeria De Vila, for their work this year in organising the conference, but also for their ongoing contributions to galvanising the digital preservation community and making the conference as accessible as possible, with free registration and a social dinner, vital, free streaming on YouTube, and a range of travel grants available thanks to the sponsors of the event. So míle buíochas, as we say in Ireland. Thank you so much. Digital collecting and preservation is essential to the National Library of Ireland's goal to collect, protect and make accessible the recorded memory of Ireland. Our born digital archives, web archives, hybrid collections and e-published materials are constantly evolving and sit alongside our physical collections, which are increasingly digitised by our digital studio. We are delighted to continuously improve our digital preservation maturity through the publication of our very first digital preservation policy back in October 2023 and the formation of our new digital preservation and repository services team, who will be leading on procuring the replacement for the National Library of Ireland's new digital repository system, which, as you all appreciate, is a huge amount of work. This has been a National Library of Ireland-wide effort to facilitate this event. due to the nature of this conference taking place and not only in a listed building but in a live working environment. And a steering committee from across the National Library of Ireland was formed to provide the best possible experience for attendees throughout the 3 days. So there's many people to thank, but I just particularly want to thank the Digital Collections repository team of especially Kieran O'Leary, Leona Fearon, and of course Maria Ryan, and of course the head of Digital Collections, Owen O'Carrigan. But I also want to include in that thanks the members of the steering committee that was cross NLI wide, which includes Anna Pitts, Caoimhe Fox, Emma Conway, Glenys Cowley, Gráinne McLaughlin, John Hogan, Carl Fagan, and Padmini Saraski. We also want to include volunteers across Digital Collections, as well as members of staff in that area, including Della Keating, Joanna Finnegan, Ronan Brennan, Porrick Stack, Martina Casey, and Kasia Kaminica. The National Library of Ireland tote bags handed out to registration contain a variety of items that we've just heard. And we also want to thank Molly, the Museum of Literature Ireland, for the free passes that are in every tote bag. But please take your time to enjoy Dublin, particularly if this is your first time. There's a wealth of national cultural institutions, this being, of course, the premier one. But obviously, within the entire Dublin 2 neighbourhood, there's so much to see and do, which will obviously all be relevant to the remit of the great work that you are doing. So thank you so much for being here.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Turkis. Lorraine and I will be your stage coordinators for the day. So we'll keep our eye on the clock, introduce presentations and speakers, and run around the room handing out the mic for questions. Let's get started. We have a great day. First up is Niamh Murphy with Foundations for the Future, Auditing Digital Collections for Long-Term Preservation. She is not here, okay. Has this happened before? Caitlin, you want to go first?
Yeah, not really.
We love a challenge here at No Time to Wait. Okay, we can switch over. Yeah, we could mix it up. Yeah, would you prefer if they go first?
Yeah, I guess.
Is that okay? Do you want to go first? Yeah? Okay. We can do that.
Okay.
This one, got it.
Is there any issue with the... You need a dongle?
No, we're switching up the schedule a little bit.
Hi to the live stream, everyone.
Hi, live stream. How do I make this? Oh, we have to.
There's the one right there.
To download this? Ay, ay, ay. Oh, is it downloaded? Got it. Oh, it was. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Oh, I didn't know there'd be computers. This one? All right, everyone, we're doing a little bit different. We're going to mix up the schedule. Thank you all for your patience and understanding. We're going to start with Evelyn Colgan and Niall Anderson's A Lovely Day for Digital Preservation, Guinness Adverts Project.
Thanks, Ben. Shall I put that? Full screen. Thanks.
Oh, we're in the wrong tab. Fab. Brilliant. Nothing like playing around with technology at a technology conference, huh? Morning, everyone. So we've put our hands up to start the conference today because we were a lightning talk, so we'll just flip with Niamh. So my name is Evelyn Colgan. I manage the Guinness Archives based here in Dublin, so delighted to be one of our Dublin and Ireland representatives at the conference today. And Niall Anderson is the head of archive projects at the Irish Film Institute and the Irish Film Archive. And we're going to talk to you about a project that we have done over the past couple of years to digitise the film collection within the Guinness Archive. So very much for me, I suppose, as the project manager for this project, for me, it's absolutely all about project partnership. So we had three different institutions that came together for this project. The first was ourselves in terms of the Guinness Archive. So we hold a huge collection of both 16mm and 35mm film reel collections. And up to a couple of years ago, and I suppose what sparked the project was the fact that these were located across 4 different institutions. So we had some ourselves within the archive collection in Dublin, we had some within the IFI, and we had some within the BFI, and there was additional collections as well. So very much the impetus, I suppose, from us as the host collection was to get an intellectual control over all of our film materials held across those institutions, and to bring them together and to digitise them. We realised that we are a very small team of 3 within the Guinness Archive. We don't necessarily have the expertise, I suppose, to look after specifically film collections. So we were delighted to partner with the Irish Film Institute and specifically the Irish Film Archive as the audiovisual centre of excellence. Here in Ireland, very much having that experience of managing large-scale digitisation projects and crucially access to expertise and equipment. And then we were also very fortunate to partner with Coimisiún na Meán, who have a really innovative funding scheme. So they are a semi-state here in Ireland. They regulate audiovisual materials in the island of Ireland, and they have a really interesting archiving scheme. And we applied to them. We didn't think we would get funding, to be honest, because we're a private institution, and normally their funding would go to public institutions. But what they are looking at are collections that are of really national interest to Irish culture, and particular materials that are under threat in terms of obsolescence. So we were really fortunate to gain funding from Coimisiún na Meán for this project as well. And I suppose for me as project manager, it's very much this collaboration in terms of bringing these 3 institutions together is what was really positive about the project. So undertook a couple of different phases. First one very much was the identification, classification and cataloguing of all of our analogue film and tape collections. We have a very vast collection, so we decided for this particular project just to concentrate on our adverts collection and then apply the learnings from this subset collection to the rest of our film collections. So we identified over 500 individual adverts, a huge amount of duplications across material that was in all of those 4 different institutions. There was one ad that we had 24 copies of on reel. We kept 3 physical copies, digitized the best version. We created a huge amount of descriptive metadata was created as part of this phase. Phase 2 then is, this is an example of some of the workflows that we created as part of the project. So the BFI held a large part of our collections. They work with a company in London called Restore as one of their preferred suppliers, who equally the IFI work with as well. So we worked with them as our digitisation partner. And they scanned from the original reels at 4K scanning and delivered the files back as untreated DPX. At this time, this project was first conceived of back in 2020, 21. And at that time, we in Guinness, the Guinness Archive, didn't have our own digital preservation system. So part of this workflow and part of the partnership with the IFI was that the outputs would go into the IFI collections. And this is very much phase 3 in terms of the ingest of those digital files and the different QC that was done, both in terms of the IFI and then also in terms of Guinness. So the IFI, we very much relied on the team there in terms of the QC of the raw scans and the technical QC of the treated MP4 scans. And then from a Guinness point of view, because we don't have that technical expertise, we were very much doing it kind of eyeball QCing, making sure that the end result was as we needed. Ultimately, the sign-off was by Guinness, and then we generated the final treated ProRes as well. So I just wanted to play you a really short clip of one of the ads that we digitized and restored. This is quite a famous ad for us in terms of Guinness. It was created in 1977. It's called The Island. The only spoken word in it is in Irish. Oscoelga, and was one of the first television ads to be created, Oscoelga. But you'll just see even the colour grading and the amazing restoration that was done. So I'll just play the first couple of seconds. So quite a colour difference. You can see there, amazing restoration that was done. Again, as project manager, I suppose, one of the key outcomes for me actually was that we got visibility for this project. In Guinness, we're well known for our public relations and our communications and our advertising. And it was really important actually for me that we surfaced the amazing work that we had done as part of this collection publicly. So we would have worked with the PR team within the IFI to create a number of initiatives. We got amazing press coverage here in Ireland at the time. From a Guinness point of view, we commissioned a film about the restoration project that we displayed in the Guinness Storehouse, which is our brand home, and we receive 1.6 million visitors a year to the Guinness Storehouse. So that was an amazing platform to be able to showcase the work that we did. And we also did something quite innovative. We launched a Guinness Archives Award where we asked current creatives to interpret an advertising brief from the 1970s, from that particular ad that I just showed you. And we put up a bursary of €10,000 very much as part of, I suppose, nurturing current talent and current creative. And that was done in conjunction with our marketing team. So with promotion and launch, we very much thought that was the end of the project, and that was done last year. But in the interim, between when we started the project back in 2020 and up to last year, we in Guinness onboarded our own digital preservation system for the first time. So all of those assets that had been ingested into the IFI, we decided we would try and see how can we get them out of the IFI and into our own digital preservation system. So I'll hand over to Niall to talk through that second part of the project.
Thank you very much. As Evelyn just sort of said, it's only digital projects like this, they don't really end, or you put them away in your mind, in your imagination, and then people actually naturally kind of get interested in it, and you keep getting invited to conferences to talk about work that you've already done. But this one is a little bit different, because having ingested all of this material into the IFI's own digital archive, we're now trying to get it back to kind of Guinness. And this is something that I've never done, kind of like sort of in my experience in archiving. It may be something that some of you have kind of undertaken, but I think it would be fresh to a lot of people here. It's certainly kind of like a relatively kind of rare thing. So we have, I think, 1,092 digital objects in our stores, about 7.5 terabytes of data. And the question is, how do we get it from our place to kind of Guinness's? So there are a couple of considerations that we had to make, which are basically on the screen. We store to LTO, whereas Guinness has a cloud-based storage system, Preservica, We encode our assets differently. So before we put things into preservation storage, we will wrap them up as MKV containers, basically to reduce the size of the digital asset by 1/3 to 2/3. Whereas Guinness would prefer to keep the raw data. We have different file naming conventions. Now, this hasn't turned out to be a problem in this project, or at least it hasn't turned out to be a problem yet, because we did the original project and we established a one-to-one relationship between what things are called in the Guinness database versus what they're called in ours. But if you were to undertake something like this yourselves, you might find yourself kind of having to do that work at a preparatory stage. Other considerations that you might want to think about: metadata retention. Our metadata schema might be different to Guinness's, it might be different to somebody else's. How much are they going to keep? How much are we going to give them? And also, what is a secure data transfer? Because like 7.5 terabytes of data, while I think an awful lot of people, in this room will say, oh, that's a project. It's a lot of data all the same, and a lot of things can kind of go wrong with it. So just a couple of things there to bear in mind. We're starting this project actually in the next few weeks. We've planned it out that it's going to last kind of like sort of 5 months up to about sort of February or kind of March this year. And there are basically 3 phases to it. The first phase takes place entirely at the IFI. We identify the items in our LTO stores, and then basically we make the tapes go live. We mount them on a NAS to make them kind of readable. The next phase is kind of QC. I'm not going to go through all of the various steps in there, but I am going to put in a word to say that everything pretty much except for the QC, the visual QC, is run off IFI scripts. Our award-winning IFI scripts, about which several people in this room know much more than I do about. But they are open source scripts available to everybody. They run off Python, and they either invoke a single service or tool, or they can be used to run kind of like sort of entire workflows. If you want to know more, you can talk to Kieran. Or you can go to ifiscripts.readthedocs.io, and I will be saying that again several times, and you can see what they do. But basically, in this particular workflow, they'll invoke a number of things, including things made by our host's media arena, right? Like QC tools and so on. And basically take things out of storage, uncook the files from FFV1 to DPX, doing technical validation using kind of like sort of media info. And then another script will be used to create proxies so that we can see that the thing is what we think it is and that it's in good kind of working order. And once we've done that on our side, we transfer it over to Guinness on an MS Azure server. Now, the Guinness side of things, is done, I would say, kind of automatically. So once it's got to Azure, it goes into Preservica. And Preservica runs basically a number of automated processes, which you'll see and which can be discussed a little bit later. So it'll validate the package at their end. It'll validate against the database. So is it what's being expected? It will do a virus check. It will characterize the files, which is something that we might need to unpack in the break a little bit later. And it will create a structure and it will ingest into Preservica. At this point, a certain amount of visual QC, basically on file name structures, takes place at kind of Guinness's end. We get together and hopefully we sign off and there are never any problems at all and everything is a one-to-one relationship and everybody's happy. The final stage, which will happen kind of like sort of next year, is what I'm going to call kind of project closure. So Guinness have asked us to make LTO copies for them, just as like an extra kind of like secure, extra bit of security. We will delete the working files from local storage, and we will also delete our own preservation files from our LTO system. This information will no longer exist within the IFI's preservation system, okay? Guinness, meanwhile, will send the validated DPX files to their own deep storage in Preservica, but will retain the access files, so ProRes and MP4 files, in kind of hot storage. But everything will be linked through Guinness's kind of axial catalog, so everything will be discoverable and retainable through there. I think that's it.
Thank you both. Can I hear me? We do not have time for questions, but if you have any questions for Evelyn or Niall, grab them during the coffee break. Next up, Kaylin, do you want to come and get your computer set up? Let's stick with Kaylin, actually, so we don't get confused on timing. But I'm glad you're here. So Kaylin Smith, next talk is Working on It, Appraising Born Digital Data to Inform Long-Term Preservation. And just give us a moment to get the computers swapped out.
Yeah, and it's this one. It shouldn't now. Yeah, so if that goes here. I did test it earlier and it did work. Oh. No, I think that's right. Sorry, just give me a second here to fix this. Ben, is it okay to start? Okay, cool. So morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It's really lovely to speak to you about what we're working on at Cambridge University Libraries. I'm Kaylin, I lead the digital preservation team at the libraries, and we're currently undergoing a digital preservation program, which I'll say more about in my slides, but we've been working on this program since June 2021. So it's been quite a long while, and it's really nice to finally be able to say more about what we've been delivering as part of the program as we near the end of it, which will be in May 2027. So Cambridge has a lot of libraries. There's something like over 100 libraries within the university. I'm based at the main research library, which is Cambridge University Library. There's also 35 sites associated with the main library, forming Cambridge University Libraries. And then there's also college libraries and archives and other libraries associated within the university or with the university. So just to say, there's a lot of really interesting work happening, and we're playing a main role in how this digital transformation for digital collection management is happening as well. And just quickly, that's what the main research library looks like. So I mentioned that we've been working for quite a long time in digital preservation, which is really more like digital collection management because we're looking across the life cycle of how we manage our digital collections. But just a few kind of key points from this journey and how we've been developing or setting up services along the way. So within this program, and this might sound familiar to you within your own work, but we're looking to improve end-to-end workflows. So we have a lot of fragmentation happening at the moment, and how we might introduce efficiencies to being able to do that. Improving search, discovery, and access, which relates to the next point here around centrally storing and managing our digital assets and bringing those files and metadata together in one place. And also looking to reduce costs, so that could include retiring old infrastructure and just being smarter about how we use cloud for processing and for storage as well, and keeping track of that information. Just quickly, this is the team that's currently working to deliver this program on a day-to-day basis, but we're also joined by our colleagues throughout the library, working in our curatorial areas, as well as our digitization studio and our open research teams. So within Cambridge University Library, we sit within what's called Digital Initiatives and Strategy. And we're really a service-oriented directorate, so we don't make any sort of decisions around what collections come into the libraries. We're really about supporting staff and readers, whether they're on site or remote, in being able to use our collections and our staff to carry out the work they need to do as part of their roles. So when it comes to our digital collections, they're divided into three main categories. So those are born digital special collections. These include not only archives, but maps, music, and other specialist areas within collecting, like the Commonwealth Society. The research outputs of the university, so these are created by staff, alumni, visiting researchers, that are made available through an open access license from the Apollo repository, which is built on DSpace, if you're familiar with that platform. And we also have an extensive in-house digitization studio. So our photographers digitize physical or analog collection materials, not only creating high-resolution preservation copies, but also doing really cool things around multispectral and microscopic imaging as well. And they create the highest volume of data that we have to preserve. Okay, so let's get into more about what we're building here. So this is a high-level architecture diagram. It's created by our colleague, John Gostick, who is our technical lead for digital preservation. On the left-hand side, you'll see data from a range of sources. So the research outputs I mentioned moments ago of the university, our Born Digital Special Collection. So some of you will have attended Leontine's workshop yesterday. So we have data being removed from carriers that have come into special collections, but also data that's come in other ways. So kind of legacy decisions around files being emailed, for example, to an archivist or sent via Dropbox or Google Drive. We also subscribe to Browser Tricks, so we use the hosted version of their software for web archiving, mainly relating to university activities, and our digitized collections as well. Those are all filtered downstream. I mentioned moments ago the transfer service and data coming off carriers. Within the last year, a pre-appraisal workstation has been set up as well, and that's helped our archivists make decisions around what should go to our transfer service to be transferred and then pushed further downstream. So this workstation sits within our Archives and Modern Manuscripts department, and it's been described to me as having shared custody of a computer between digital preservation and Archives and Modern Manuscripts. Okay, so our data is filtered more downstream. We use Fedora for repository infrastructure, so Fedora 6. And we're also part of that community providing funding as well to it. So various checks are happening along the way. So as data is ingested into our repository, we're checking for duplicate submissions, creating metadata around file size, extracting containers, for example, zip files, verifying any supplied checksums, identifying the format of each file, scanning for viruses, calculating missing checksums, and generating unique identifier amongst other things. And then what I'll be talking about shortly in my presentation is the area at the top here called the Workbench, which is a web UI that sits on top of our preservation repository. So the idea is that no one interacts with Fedora directly, but they do so through this user interface that we've developed in-house, not having seen something on either the commercial market or via open source that was usable or met our requirements. Just quickly, we use cloud for building the services as well. So we use mainly AWS, and we store data in Azure as well. This has been a really big change for the libraries, moving from on-premise infrastructure, either at the library or one of our data centers within the university, to using cloud. It's possible that we might also choose to have an offline backup as well, but at the moment, we're doing all our processing and data storage using cloud infrastructure and services. Okay, so this is what we've managed to achieve so far. So we're still going, we're still building things, but in terms of where we are as of October 2025, so we have some content in our preservation repository, and we have a lot of content that's been secured and backed up that's awaiting ingest. So at the moment, the focus of the delivery is on creating those workflows to get that data into Fedora. And then I just wanted to also highlight the user impact that the program has had on our colleagues. So we've been really working closely with them to try and get their feedback and make information clearer where we can to ensure that they're involved in the delivery of these services, because ultimately they'll be the ones who are using them. All right. So just getting more onto the workbench here. Like many institutions, we've relied on a mix of open source and commercial tools for digital collection management, but these often sit in isolation, so we needed something more integrated. So really it's intending to be a bridge between deposit and transfer and discovery and access. And when it comes specifically to born digital collection data, there's a lot of challenges around knowing what's on carriers that have been given to us or data that's been deposited to the library through other means. So how can a curator inspect the intellectual content of these files? And how can they make decisions around what should be kept or deleted, amongst other decisions they need to make as part of their roles as curators for their collections? So this is the landing page for the workbench. This is a screen capture of our staging environment here. Any authenticated user is able to sign in using their university credentials, and that secure access is made possible through the existing secure sign-in service that we have within the university. And then just quickly, who's this workbench for? It's for Cambridge University Library staff, so those could be archivists, curators, it could be our photographers or staff working in copyright and licensing, open access teams, and so forth. And it's really trying to support the following activities, so being able to search across collections for preserved digital files and metadata, supporting our archivists or curators in inspecting that content and being able to do things like assign or create metadata and select files for long-term preservation, allowing colleagues or staff to create reports of any information that's been indexed in the repository, and also another section that we haven't yet delivered, but that's on the plan, is addressing risks and issues using preservation planning or. Okay. So because of the Wi-Fi issues, I'm going to show a screen recording instead that my colleague John has created. So I'm just going to pause this for a sec and just kind of provide some more information about what you're seeing. So John has already signed into the workbench. He's authenticated his credentials, so he's gone past that login screen that I showed moments ago. On the left-hand side of the menu here, there's different functions that you can go into as a staff member. I'm just going to back up here so you can see this again. So you can look at what packages have been ingested into the repository and track those. And then if you're an archivist or have a curatorial role, you can go in and see what those packages are that still need to be appraised. Select one of those packages. We have some really nice administrative metadata around how that package has come into the repository and what department it belongs to. You can export metadata that can then be uploaded to archive space to either create or enhance existing metadata or records in there, as well as assign other metadata tags that can be exported as well. So John's just assigned the package to himself. You might have seen that his name has then been assigned to that package. So you know it's an individual, yeah, sorry, staff member that's kind of taken ownership of that within the workbench. So what you're seeing here is the files that are within an item package. And John was showing you how you could filter by different fields to see different kinds of files or files marked for deletion. This is now the file or object view for one of those files. So similarly, there's different metadata that's associated with that individual file. It might be the case that there's lots of embedded metadata within a file, so we've tried to group that together and make it as clear as possible within the interface. So a curator or archivist might also decide to soft delete something, so that was meant to happen. And if they do decide that they want to preserve it long term, can then make the decision to restore it before it's kind of finalized and submitted to the preservation workflow and stored across 3 different locations. So something that we've recently added is this file hierarchy view, which is really nice, especially for archival collections, where that, with kind of intellectual meaning of an archive is also communicated with how the files have been structured within the submission. One of the things that's come up from feedback from our curators is that it'd be nice to be able to move files within that hierarchy before the data is then sent to the preservation workflow. So that's something that we're trying to take on board and see if we can deliver as well. And then this is just the last part here around some reports that will be able to be generated using any of the indexed fields within the workbench. At the moment, this is just an example of metadata relating to deposits that have been submitted. Okay. So in terms of next steps, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we're trying to focus at the moment on getting more data into the preservation repository so it can be then indexed and surfaced to the workbench for archivists to go in and appraise it. We also want to carry out more user acceptance testing with our archivists as well. I've written a blog post here around how we started doing that, but it's been a really big learning experience for us, especially developing something entirely bespoke in-house, and how we gather that feedback and how our archivists want to carry out that testing, whether that's within a kind of small group context or individual time, and us giving them scenarios to test out. So we're looking to also deploy the workbench in early 2026, so that minimum viable product will be live for our archivists to use in-house and other Cambridge University Libraries staff. And then farther into the future, we're looking to publish the code for all of the services we're delivering under an open source license. I don't have a date for that yet. We want to make sure that these services are working for us before we release that code to the community. We also want to address any sort of would-like enhancements and explore how we can provide shared services for digital collection management across Cambridge University. And we also want to share more about what we built, so it'd be interesting to get any questions or feedback on what we've done so far. Yeah, so thanks a lot for your attention, and yeah, enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Kaylin. Any questions, remote or in person?
What do you use
Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I'll take names. Anyone remote questions? No. Okay. And then let me get the mic so that we can.
Congratulations on what you've built so far. Looks great. I had a quick question about your curators. Are they, when they're making deletions, is there, I'm sure that they're going through some sort of acquisitions policy, but do they have a way of annotating that within the workbench?
So any changes that are made within the workbench are time-stamped and also associated with the what's called the CRS ID, which is a unique identifier associated to a member of staff. So all that metadata is then captured and included when, I guess, the item package is finalized and pushed to the preservation workflow. Does that answer your question? Or? Yeah. There will be a free text field as well where they can enter information around why they made certain decisions, but we're trying to make things as consistent as possible because that will also support search. A really interesting and kind of funny thing that happened when I arrived and I was searching through one of our other databases for CDs because wanted to know how many CDs that we had within special collections. And CD was associated with a compact disc, but it was also associated with Charles Darwin. So we really want to keep, again, metadata as kind of clean, consistent as possible. Our archivists use archive space as well, so some of that metadata will be imported into archive space, and they might also choose, for one reason or another, to record certain information in archive space because that will still remain the source of truth for any collections that are cataloged in that system.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I am curious, again, on the sort of the curatorial side, is there sort of systems that are going to be built for accountability for your curators to actually use this system consistently?
Can you say more about that?
So I think sometimes, in my experience, like there can be a disconnect between what we're trying to do in digital preservation and communicating that to the people making the decisions about acquisitions. So we can set up systems and they can work really well, but actually using it is another story. And I'm just wondering, like, do you have support from the leadership higher up in your organization to sort of support curators to actually use the system and cull what they're collecting?
Yeah, so I think we're tackling that in a few different ways. So we're fortunate that digital preservation is explicitly mentioned in our overarching library strategy. So I feel there is that support from senior management. We've received like £5.5 million from Cambridge University to deliver this program. So we report to different boards and within the governance structure of the university around the progress that we've made. There's also some really great documentation and training that's happening. So Leontine especially has worked closely with Rebecca Johnson, who's our digital archivist at the library, to deliver training to help our archivists become more comfortable and confident with working with digital. Some of them are, some of them definitely are heading in that direction, and I think others need, a bit more time, or they might need a different kind of training resource or a different way of communicating to them. I'm just trying to think what else. We also love documentation, so there's been a lot of both technical documentation and user documentation written. We also have a Born Digital Archives working group as well, so that brings digital preservation staff together with archivists, and we're just trying to make that more of a collaborative experience and also listen to them and their requirements rather than them feeling like we're delivering something and just handing it over to them and expecting them to use it.
Thanks, Kaylin.
Thank you.
If you have any more questions for Kaylin, we can grab her during the break. So we're going to do one more computer switch, I believe. So give us just a moment to get set up. But next up, we have Amy Brost and Micah Bose from curation to secure storage, MoMA's digital preservation workflow.